Hey everyone, welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Founder. I'm your host, Luke Beastall, and I'm in the studio today in Nottingham with Jaz Goundry. So he's an ex-professional footballer at Grimsby Town. He's had a fantastic football career, which I know we're going to talk about today on the show. We're actually friends, which is great. We've done doubles in High Rock. So I already know this is going to be an insane conversation, and there's some common ground because obviously we've both got a footballing background, but he's a lot better than me anyway. But it's just going to be good to delve into it. He's got a company now where he coaches footballers from all different backgrounds and helps them, go up to that next level with his company name, Player Performance. So I'm going to intro you in, mate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And this is your first podcast?
First podcast.
And you said earlier, didn't you, actually, before we hit record, that you've always, even from when you was younger, you always wanted to be on a podcast?
Yeah, always wanted to be on a podcast. Probably a little bit scared when I was a kid. Probably a little bit of imposter syndrome as well, like what would I talk about? But I feel since I've started sharing my story online, I feel it would be a good idea because you don't see everything on social media.
Yeah.
A lot more to it.
No, definitely. And I think this is a great space to do that because obviously we'll be recording for like an hour and it'll give that opportunity and space for you to sort of check in on your journey, and for probably people who's followed you and are interested to know more about you, you'll have that chance to get to know you more.
Yeah, definitely.
So in terms of your story today, I mean, I think this is actually a good sort of space to start. What is it that you would love to share to our audience that they can take away that could have an impact on their life?
For me, there's not too much to me.
I'm sure there is.
Maybe there is, but I've never been like the most, like in football, I've never been the most skillful, never been like the best player. Obviously my position sort of chose that, like centre half.
Right.
They don't normally get all the spotlight. More of just like a mindset from today I'd like to put out. It's something that I share online. Like I put bits and bobs out on social media. I just think like the biggest thing for me, like whenever I speak to people, is just if you've got a dream, something you really want to go and do, just go and do it. And I think that's the message I want to put out to people. Obviously, we'll delve into how, I'm sure, but yeah, that's the biggest thing for me.
So you shared something there where you felt probably that centre halves don't get the spotlight.
Yeah.
And for you, again, you talked about, obviously, you would have built a resilient mindset. There'd probably been things that you'd had to go through, work through to be able to build this strong, to keep going and going after your dream.
Yeah.
When did you realise, or when did that moment come to you when you thought, do you know what? I believe I can become a professional footballer?
I think when you're growing up and you're playing, I think every kid has that feeling. Did I think at 13, 14 it was going to come true? I honestly, I couldn't tell you. Like I've tried to think back coming up today, like where did it really click for me? And I would probably say like 14, 15. I thought this is what I want to go and do. I'll do everything that I can. Like growing up, I never went to parties.
Okay.
I tried to keep my diet as good as I can, or as good as I could, because I had that dream of wanting to be a professional footballer. I never was in any sort of academy. I never got any sort of look until I was 15. I got my first rejection at Chesterfield. And it was probably after that I thought, right, this is what I really want to go and do. Because I seen the standard, obviously lads that were my age, which were playing, I think they were Cat 3 at the time. And I thought, comparing myself to these, I think I've got a chance. To say I've come from like grassroots all my life and these have been playing and training 3 times a week, I didn't think there was a massive difference. And it was probably then I thought, if I just get it right and I train, what I need to train to be able to play in these games where, it's a lot more technical, I think I had a chance. So I'd say sort of 14, 15. Obviously it clicked for me so I signed for like Sheffield United's community college program.
Right.
That was the first sort of like signing that I did where I thought, I can now train pretty much full time and, really start to work on, what I want to go and do. I always trained extra. I always took myself down to the park. Like I was that boring person in school that, like I said, never went to the parties, and people back then probably thought, why are you doing that? You're playing grassroots still.
Right.
But I don't know where I got it from. I'd probably say I got it from like my dad, like the work ethic. But it was just always a thing that I did. I always used to go out on my own. I'd try and organise like sessions with lads and stuff, but no one was really bothered, especially at 14, 15. And that's what I see now, like in my job day to day, when lads get to, and girls, when they get to like that sort of age, it's like, do I want to be a footballer? I'm now like leaving school in the next 1 or 2 years. That's when most people drop off. And I think for me, when I was a kid, I was always one of the better players at like my grassroots teams, but like I said, I never got that chance to go into an academy. And a lot of the lads that was in academies when I was sort of, 10 to 14, they stopped playing at 15, 16 when they got released before the scholarship. And, a lot of them don't even play anymore, and they're such talented lads. Like I could name loads, but they were lads at like Forest, which was like one of the best academies in the country. And then they're now not playing at 16, which I think is like, in a way, it's such a waste. But I guess that's what it does to people. Like, when it's everything that you've ever known, to have it stripped from you at that age, I think it's hard to get back. I do think that's the hardest age to get released, just before your scholarship. Obviously, for me, it was the opposite. So, I was chasing that dream, and then I got the chance at, I think I was just turned 16. I was like 2 or 3 weeks into pre-season at the community college program, and I was speaking to someone about it the other week, like how it came about. But me and the other centre half on the program, we went up to, I think it was Preston. We had a pre-season game.
Yeah.
And obviously with us both going up there, it was sort of like, we're going to have a look at both here, and we'll see who we're going to take on, if any. I think the centre half at the time had moved up to the first team, and he's now playing for Watford, so it was obviously a call for him to go and play in the first team at, I think it was like 16, 17, wow. He was training with them, and then he went on to play, and then he got his move to Watford, and he's playing there every week now. Wow. So, yeah, that was where the space came from. So, and I think that's the whole thing in football. It's all about like opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, if he didn't go and play in that first team, that opportunity at Grimsby wouldn't have come, and I don't know how much different the journey would have been if that wouldn't have been the case. But yeah, we went up to Preston, and I did feel out of depth going there. Obviously, they was Cat 2. I was playing in a team of lads which I didn't know. As a kid, I always had that anxiety anyway for like new stuff and playing in new teams. And I can remember the journey up. It was terrifying, but I can remember as soon as I crossed the line, I think I didn't start. I came on as a sub, I think at half time. So I could sort of watch the game, and I could see, what I needed to go and do when I went on. And I went on, and, I forgot about everything. I chillaxed, and I must have done okay, because they invited me back in, and then I went in to train at the training ground as part of the pre-season. I remember it being a few weeks into pre-season, and I can remember on the runs I was miles away. I was miles off of the standard of the other lads. I think that summer they took in a few lads which had been released from other academies, higher academies, and the difference was definitely there. But I think the managers at the time, which I'll get onto later, because there was a massive thing for me in my career in sort of believing in me. They were the first people to sort of believe in me and go, yeah, I think we can see something in Jaz. But like I said earlier, I was never sort of the most skillful or technical player, but I always had that grit and that hard work, and I think that took me a long way all the way through my career. I was always willing to want to be better, and I think that's what was the difference between me and sort of the other lads, because I think there were a lot of lads in over the pre-season period on trial, and I think I was one of 2 that got signed.
Wow.
So yeah, that was like the initial journey from going to grassroots into academy football. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it was an easy transition. I remember it at the time. I was like, going back to my dad, I was like, I don't get why they've sort of signed me here, because I did feel out of place. But as you train every day and you get to know the environment, you do get used to it. But it took me a long time to get into the team. Like, it took me a good 6 months, and something that I've never shared online and only people within the club know. The lad playing left centre half, so I'm a left-footed centre half. Yeah. So
unique,
sort of rare to come by. You don't really see it much nowadays. it's normally sort of left backs, which transitional. It's a right-footed centre half. The lad which was playing left side of centre half, he was a second year, so he was the year above me, and he was a good player. He went on to sign for Bristol. Duncan, I'll give him a shout out because we lived in the same digs.
Nice one.
So we had a good friendship. But to be honest, I wasn't ready, and I wasn't knocking on any doors saying, why am I not playing? Because I was sort of happy to just find my way in naturally. And I can remember I came on. It was in a cup game at our home training ground, and I just had this wave of anxiety, and I ended up coming off, and I said that I was injured, and I wasn't injured. I just wanted to find a way out.
Okay.
I think within the first couple of minutes I played a bad pass, and back then I was terrible for beating myself up. And I think if any of my coaches at Grimsby do listen to the podcast, will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I was so critical on myself, and definitely too hard on myself, and that's something. It probably took me a good year whilst I was at Grimsby to understand and to realise that everyone's going to make mistakes, and it's something that I pass on to the kids I coach now every day, because I see it all the time. I think it's such a natural thing for footballers to be very critical of themselves and want the best. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, when parents come to me and they say that they're really self-critical and they beat themselves up, I don't think that in itself is a bad thing. I think when you take it too far, it can then be quite detrimental.
Well, it's sabotaging, isn't it, at the end of the day? I mean,
and I can remember playing this first pass, and I just had this surge of just complete panic and worry, and the manager's seeing it, and he was trying to calm me down. And I came off the pitch, and I can remember I went to the toilet, and I was just locked myself in the toilet. I didn't even want to go back out. And my dad came, and I told my dad I was injured. And then I think it was a few weeks after, I eventually went to the club, and I said, look, there's a problem here, because after that game, I obviously went back to the bench, and I was sort of hoping that I wouldn't come on. I can remember at the time, I was hoping I wouldn't come on. I was like, this time last year, if you'd have said I'd have been at a Cat-Free Academy, I'd have bit your hand off. I'd have absolutely loved to be in this position, and now I don't even want to play. I love training, and I had no pressure on me at all training. But when it came to a game, I just have this crazy pressure of wanting so much from myself, which sometimes is probably a bit unrealistic.
Where was that coming from?
I don't know. I struggled as a kid. I struggled as a kid a lot through school. Anxiety was a big thing for me as a kid, and my parents were so good in helping me get through school. Even at school, it was a problem.
Where did that sort of come from? If you look back on reflection, where did that anxiety develop? Was it a certain situation? Was it
no situation?
No.
I didn't have anything that happened which caused it. It was just something that I've had since I was really young, and my mum took me to loads of places to sort of try and get to the bottom of it. And I couldn't tell you what age it was, but I eventually got diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism spectrum. And that's what they sort of put it down to. And they did try to give me medication and that to help it, but I don't think my dad was keen on the idea of going on to medication. And, if you ask me now, I wouldn't have wanted that either. No. I'm glad I didn't, because I found a way to deal with it. And, I now take that into everything that I do. The club did help. They did help at first, and they tried to put things in place to try and get me back on the pitch, and they spoke to me, but I did feel there wasn't much there. But at the end of the day, football is a business, and they're only bothered about the players that are playing. And I get that now. I didn't get it at the time, but I get that now. And the PFA come into clubs, and they were really good. They put some really good sort of sessions on for young players to sort of understand the pressures of football, because it is real, and I think a lot of people do go through the same thing, but don't speak out for whatever reason, and I was the same.
Did you feel supported enough though in that environment when you was playing?
Probably not. No.
Right.
Nor did I seek the advice and help though. I was very closed.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't feel like I could have. But I'm quite aware a lot of it was down to me. I didn't want to come out. My problem was at Grimsby, I didn't want to come out to the coaches and say, I feel this way because I thought it'd be detrimental on me playing.
Okay.
I thought
because you was regularly playing.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought, because eventually I got myself in a team and it was still probably a bit of a problem, but I thought if I went to them and said, you know, I'm worrying about playing all the time, and I feel like they wouldn't trust me, when really youth team's not about that. It's about developing the players, and so that's why I didn't say anything.
It's a typical guy thing, though, isn't it? Bottling up emotions, right?
Yeah,
and not wanting to be weak, not wanting to feel vulnerable in any given situation, because obviously you've been gifted this fantastic opportunity at a pro club, and you know, you just didn't want to share it. And I think as well, though, is I don't know what, I mean, you'll talk more about this, like the footballing environment. What was it like in the changing rooms? Did it feel like, was there any guys that were very open about the emotions, or was it very much just banter? You know, that sort of, did you feel safe enough to share about your emotions in there, or was it just...
You know, our 16 to 18-year-old lads are, you know, no one shares it, and
see, that's the thing, though, isn't it? Where it builds.
It does build up, and you know, that day it built up to me coming off the pitch when I'd worked 6 months to get that opportunity to come on. The lad playing, I think he got injured, and that's what football is. It's an opportunity, and it was an opportunity for me to go and play, and I obviously wasn't ready at that time. But yeah, like the environment at football is very much just, it's always banter, and it's great.
Yeah,
it's great. But no, especially at youth team, there were no lads sort of open themselves up. The first team lads was good, but you definitely won't go to a first team lad and say, "I'm worried about this. Can you sort of help me?" When really they're probably the best people to go to, because you know they've been through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I eventually sort of got myself through it. You know, my parents did take me to multiple different people to try and sort of get to the bottom of it and come up with ways which I can deal with it. And you know, I don't know when it clicked, but at some point it did click, and it was definitely like the back end of my first year. I wouldn't say it was a write-off, but it was definitely a big learning year in terms of getting up to speed. You know, this thing with the worrying, and then I eventually got playing regular. The lad, it was weird actually, because when I wasn't playing, obviously they had reserve games on, and I was playing in the reserve games, which a lot of the time was like first team lads of League 1, 2, Championship, which were getting back to fitness, or they were under 23s. So technically it was actually a better level, but I was playing the reserve just because I wasn't playing in the youth team, so they was getting me minutes. And you know, that's where I think I built the confidence, because I was like, I can do it in the reserves, so you know I can do it in the youth team. And then I eventually got my opportunity to play weekly. The lad who was playing there went up with the first team. He later went on to get his pro. And I was playing every game, and I had a really good finish to the season. I played every game. I did have a few clubs come down and was watching. And then I think it was about 8 weeks to go before the second year. I had my first head injury, and I don't know what it was. I think I just headed the ball funny at training, and I just had this thing. My vision went in one eye, and I got this terrible headache, which I'd never got before. And I can remember the first time I was really quiet on it. I didn't want to say anything because I think there was a game coming up, and I'll get onto that later on. But I was terrible for letting anyone know that I was injured or had something wrong with me. Would always play with it and through it, which is, you know, I understand now isn't a good idea, and it has left me with, you know, physical injuries which affect me now. My ankles. I played through quite a lot of ankle problems, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to sit on the bench and say that I was injured, or I didn't want to be in the gym.
Does that come from when you sort of pulled that injury, sort of that experience there? Like you just, because you shared that experience, didn't you, where you were saying, I come off injured when I weren't injured.
Yeah.
So then did that flip it a little bit that when you were injured, then you're not, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the things with the playing through injuries, like back then I always played football because I loved it and I enjoyed it, and I never didn't want to not play. And I also think it was a little bit like you've come from like the back ends of grassroots to now playing in an academy. You've only got 2 years, and I've always been quite aware of like time, and I know it's not a long time, in football.
No.
2 seasons isn't very long at all. And I think it was a little bit like, you've got this opportunity, you're playing in an academy, just go and play every single game that you physically can. And I did, and I played through injuries, and I had that first head injury in my first year. And, you know, that was the first of a few. And I never said anything to the club until it probably went a little bit too far, and you know, they then started saying, this is like your third head injury. You know, we need to find out what's going on because no one else is getting these head injuries. And a lot of it was self-inflicted. You know, like, I was a very probably traditional centre half, with a little bit of like a modern twist. Like, I like to play out. You know, as I started to train more, I did get quite technical, and I was comfortable to play out from the back, and that was the way that Grimsby wanted to play.
Yeah,
but I had that old school. You know, I wanted to go and smash everyone.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was where a lot of the head injuries come from.
Yeah,
it was me putting my head into stupid places, really, where I shouldn't have. Or, you know, the final head injury I had, when I actually knocked myself out in a pre-season game, I went flying into a tackle, which I didn't need to do. Like, I could have just stood off. The lad was going to have his back to me. But you don't think about it at the time. I remember, like, this was... I don't know if it was my second year pre-season or it was my first year pro. I think it was my first year pro pre-season, and I knew the manager was there watching, and I was just trying to impress. It was the last game of pre-season, and I think it was like 13th, 14th minute. I've gone in, lad slightly turned his back, who I'd played with before on loan, and I knew he was a quick lad, so I knew how to get there. And it was sort of like first 10 minutes, sort of let him know that you're there. And I just spiraled up in the air, came back down, and smashed my head on the floor, knocked myself out. I went straight to Hull Hospital. We were playing at North Ferriby. And then, yeah, it was a crazy time. Like, it was the first probably proper injury I had, where I was out for like a significant amount of time, other than my hamstring, which I'll get onto, which was just before my decision. I had about 3 months off. I went up to London, I had my CT scan, I had my MRI scan, and it was a really slow process getting back into football. I think the club was worried how I might come back, and if I do it again, you know, what damage is it going to be? And I can remember getting back to football, that was definitely a worry I had. That was the first time I worried, and it took me a long time to get back to like having the confidence to get up and head a ball. And you know, the lads will laugh, but I had to have a scrum hat on.
I was going to say, do you have to have a head guard?
I had a scrum hat on after the second time I went to hospital. They recommended a scrum hat and said it might not do too much, but, you know, if anything, it might just be like a mental thing. So I wore that, and obviously I stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
I went on to my first loans when I first got that scrum hat, and I can remember getting absolute pelters from the away fans.
Really? But they're gonna stick at you. You're in wrong sport.
Yeah.
What are you doing playing football? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a running thing with the opposition fans.
Yeah, of course.
Players, which it is in football.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back onto sort of injuries, the only sort of bad injury I had was the last couple of weeks leading up to getting the decisions in my second year, and I had a great second year. I played the whole season. I was training with the first team, and again, like the head injury, I flew into a tackle when I shouldn't have. I didn't need to. The manager was there watching. I wanted to impress, and obviously, you going into the last couple of weeks before decisions are made, and I tore my hamstring. I had a grade 3 hamstring tear, and you know, it's that like worry of have I fucked it? You know, like, even though decisions were probably already made by then, but you don't think about that at the time. And I can remember that was 2 or 3 months where I was out. Luckily, I didn't need surgery, but it was a long process to get it back to normal. And for me, being in the rehab rooms, I just want to get back.
Yeah.
And I remember I did get back about 4 weeks early than what the doctor said I should have been back. And I was back running. I wanted to get back for the end of the season. And I think that the managers just said, there's no point. I think they knew the decisions were made. And then it came to decision day. I can remember, I think mine was in the afternoon. I had the last decision.
Really?
So I was sat at home, I was like trying to work it out. Like, am I last because
Yeah.
I got it? Am I last because, is it just the order that they put it in? And then like I went out in the morning. I couldn't sit at home. I was in digs and I
Yeah.
went with my family. And like that was like the first like big decision of my life. So I was like, I'm either going to go on to have my pro contract or, I'm getting released at 16, 17 and I've got to go back to square one. I've got to find somewhere again. And I actually knew I got my pro before I went in there because I seen the assistant manager as I was walking in. And he's a very serious guy. Chris Doig, his name was. We had an interesting relationship. At the time, I thought this guy hates me. He was very traditional. But I know now that it was for my best interest.
Yeah.
And if I ever see him now, I'd shake his hand and say, "You was great for me."
Yeah.
It's what I needed. I needed someone to be tough on me. I was one of them players which didn't need people saying well done all the time. I needed someone to be tough on me, and he was. He was really tough on me, and he was everyone. But he gave me a smile, and he asked me how I was, and he said something else, and I just knew I'd got it. And then I walked into the office, and I think from the first couple of words if you're going to get your contract.
Right. What did they say?
First of all, he said about how's my injury,
right?
And I said I'm doing everything I can to get back, and he was just like, Jaz, chill out. You've got 6 weeks off now. Just get back fit for when you come back in. And that's when I knew. And he said, we're thrilled to offer you a professional contract.
Fantastic.
I didn't even look at the contract. I wasn't bothered. I'd got it.
Yeah.
So I got offered a year plus one. So at the end of that year, they had the decision to either extend it or not.
Okay.
And I went back from there, and I took myself out to Tenerife on my own, which I then went on to do for the following 4 years. I then took my business there to coach lads in the off season, but I went out there on my own and I trained with the local coaches there. And I came back. I remember I came back into pre-season. That was at the time the fittest I'd ever been.
Right.
Coming off the back of that hamstring injury.
How long did you go at Tenerife for? Was it? So you did your little pre-season?
Yeah, I went out for a week, trained the double days, football sessions, gym, running, an amazing facility in Tenerife, which obviously I then went on to take lads in as part of the first sort of thing outside the country with player performance.
Nice.
This was whilst I was working for someone, which I'm sure I'll get into on sort of how I built the business up, but yeah, I went out. I met a guy out there, Jake, which I'll give a massive shout out to. We still speak every day. And whilst I was training with the coaches, he was there taking a little group of lads from the UK, which was all at Cat 1, Cat 2 academies. And he invited me in, and I trained with him for the last 2 days. And we built that connection. The year after, we did it together, and we built from his original 3 to 6 to 9. Unfortunately, I had to miss out this year because our girls that come to us have gone out to play in Barcelona, but he's gone out again. I think it'd have been the 5th year that I'd have gone out this year.
Wow.
And I went back in and I trained with the first team that whole pre-season. Got chucked in some of the games with them. We played some good teams. We played Rotherham, which was our keeper's testimonial game at the time. So it was a full stadium. That was the first time I played in front of like 5,000, 6,000 people.
Wow.
Which was obviously an amazing feeling. That's what you dream of doing. And then, going into that first year pro, I sort of knew I wasn't going to play. I was training with the first team, and then eventually I sort of said that I wanted to go out on loan. And I went to my first loan at Frickley, which was step 4. And then I think within 2 months, Bridlington came in, which was a little bit higher up the league.
Yeah.
I think Frickley were recently promoted. I went into Bridlington. Bridlington was the first time I'd gone into like a senior men's team, and I thought, this is what I want to do. Like, I loved it at Bridlington. I still speak to some of the lads today. I still keep in contact with the manager at the time, who tried to sign me a couple of times after. We just had a great relationship. Like, he was honest. He brought me into play. It was the first time I'd played anywhere other than centre half. He played me centre mid a few
Yeah.
times as a bit of like a utility man. And I loved it at Bridlington. The fans were great, really welcoming. And then after Bridlington, I think Grimsby recalled me. I think they'd had a few injuries. They recalled me. I was sort of back training with them. I was still training with them every day.
Yeah.
And then I went to, they trained in Hull. I trained with Bridlington twice a week. So I had the best of both worlds. And I was playing, and I played sort of the rest of the season at Bridlington. And then, not long after that, Matlock came in, which was the league above.
Yeah.
And Grimsby, you pulled me from that loan and sent me to Matlock. And that was, at the time, the highest level that I'd played at. I went in there, and that was probably the first time I'd got, the real reality of football. I went in and I wasn't playing straight away, and it taught me to sort of stick by the plan. And at the time I didn't think that. I was like, I thought I should have been playing. I thought the manager at the time was playing lads which shouldn't have been playing over me, and I got dealt with the experience card, which I then got used to, especially as a centre half. It's an hard position to go into. I was 17 at the time. To trust a 17-year-old lad to play at the heart of defence, you've got to trust him. And, he trusted the experienced lads more, which, is understandable. I eventually broke into that team, and there was a change in manager, which again is another tough thing in football, which I'm sure you all know and relate to. And, he brought his own lads in, which managers tend to do in non-league, and I dropped back down to the bench, and it was like, all right, I've got to build my way back up again. And I did that. I got into the team, and then Grimsby recalled me again, and then I finished the rest of the season there. I think I went out to, obviously Grimsby Borough was in the mix of the loans, which, very similar to Bridlington, was some of the best times that I had. Obviously it was a local team. The lads were great there. Still speak to a lot of them, and I actually went to sign for Grimsby Borough after I got released from Grimsby. I had a great relationship with the manager, Dan Barrett, which I'm sure he'll be buzzing. I've given him a shout out.
Yeah.
Just a really honest guy, and I think when you're a player, that's all you want. You want a bit of honesty, and he was like a really nice guy. So yeah, I finished the season off at Grimsby Borough, and I had a good season. I had a good season of going out on loan. I think I played 50 games that year. I played like a hell of a lot of games, and that's when Grimsby offered me my second year pro. And then went into the off season again. Obviously, with that experience of playing men's football now, I was hungry to go in pre-season and play for the first team. And I went back in, and again, I thought I was the fittest I'd ever been. I thought I did well in pre-season. I started a lot of the games that pre-season. And, the season started. They'd been promoted from the National League that year. So the year I got offered my pro, they'd been relegated from League 2.
Right.
And then they bounced straight back up from the National League. So it was hard because they'd gone up to League 2, and it's like, you need to stay in the league. So it was sort of the same feeling as the year before.
Yeah.
I know I might not get given the opportunity. Maybe the cup games and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, I got a chance in some of the local cup games. And it was a hard time at the time in my first year. It was the back end of the season, and they'd already got the playoffs. And I was very confident I was going to start one of the last games of the season. And we were training on a Friday. We was doing shape, and I was in the shape. And one of the lads, which I think was a bit frustrated that he'd not been playing, just came from behind and absolutely smashed me.
Oh.
And, I think it was either a grade 2 or a grade 3 ankle tear, and it put me out for the season, and put me out, which I think would have been my debut, which was a hard time. I was so frustrated. That was the first time I'd properly lost my head.
Well, you would, mate. It's your dream, innit?
Yeah.
Your dream, and somebody's just took it out on you out of frustration.
And I think it was that. I hobbled. I tried to play on, and the gaffer took me off. He said, "You fucked.
This was on the shape session. Yeah. Wow.
So it was
not even a game.
It wasn't even a game.
Just training.
And he came flying in.
Did it look so obvious as well?
Yeah, it was a bad tackle.
Did even any players say it?
Yeah, I think a few had a word with him.
Yeah.
Because I was obviously I'd had ankle problems before.
Yeah.
So it was a bad tackle. I'd properly gone over on it. I think I tore 2 out of the 3 ligaments in my ankle. So it was a proper job, and I was out for the rest of the season, and then I was out for the first couple of weeks of pre-season, and that was like the start of playing through injury, and I was like trying so hard to get back before the end of that season, and I just kept pushing myself back, which is one thing I've learned, like just to listen to your body and, don't try and force your way back into things when you're obviously not right, when everyone's telling you around you that you've got a 12-week injury, you ain't going to be back in 4.
Yeah, I think obviously, I mean, mate, there's so much you've shared there, which I think is, there's a lot I've sort of taken away, and I think for anybody sort of watching this or listening, a parent who's got, a daughter or son in football or have experienced football will probably massively, I can relate to what you're saying in regards to the banter and, the management being cold or old school and stuff like that. You have mentioned quite a few people. You've dropped in a few shout outs there, which I think is brilliant that you do that, so you've got respect for them. Who out of all of those people that you've come into sort of contact with has been the standout for you when it comes to what have they taught you that you now pass down to your players?
It's hard. I think I learned a lot about football when I was at Bridlington and Grimsby Borough. That taught me about, men's football and, how to deal with people in a team environment. So I'd say like them 2 teams taught me that stuff. When I went to Matlock, it taught me resilience to bounce back from setbacks and, not let negative things put you down. I can remember at the time of being at Matlock, it was the most like hungry I've ever been to want to do extra training. So I took it so personal that, he didn't think I was ready, that I can remember I stayed in at training all the time, and I was the only player to do that. Like the amount of times I was on that pitch once everyone had gone, it was so often. But I think that carried on from when I was younger, just wanting to be better, and that's where I was so glad where my journey getting picked up so late, I was still so hungry when probably a lot of the lads was probably just happy to be there and sort of coasting at times. I still had such a grip between my teeth. In terms of individuals, I think my 2 youth team managers, Neil and Cal, they were big for me. And it's hard because my relationship with Grimsby broke down after that last head injury.
Right.
I took it so personal that I couldn't play, and I had a conversation with someone at the club, and they said to me that I might need to look about an alternative after my head injury.
Right.
But at that time, I'd not had my scan results. It was just the fact of it was my 3rd or 4th head injury. I think the club were worried, where I was going to go with it. Was I going to get another head injury and it be, possibly fatal, or put me into like retirement? And I think the club, I don't know, the club probably didn't want it on their hands. But yeah, I can remember I walked around the pitch with a member of staff there one day, and he said to me, "Have you had to think about alternative things to football?" And I think I was 18, and I had this thing come through, and I was so angry that they would try and tell me that I might need to look about retiring at 18. I was like, I just took that so personal. But yeah, back to what I said, like my relationships broke down with Grimsby a little bit near the end. But my youth team manager and the assistant, Neil and Cal, they was so big for just learning me like football life and like, all the things that I listed before, like resilience when things aren't going right. When you're out of the team, how can you get back in it? When you're injured, can you get back to full fitness? Like, have you got the mental resilience to do that? Dealing with people, like all these things which I've took from football, I generally feel like I put into my day-to-day life now, and that's where I was so grateful to Grimsby for learning with them things, which I'm sure you learn at every club, but I learnt a lot at Grimsby. I learnt the most that I ever learnt in football in them 4 years that I was at Grimsby. And again, the same with Chris, the assistant manager of the first team. At the time, I thought he was so hard with me, but now I've got older and I've matured. I understand why he was doing it, and I understand why the youth team managers were so hard on us at times, because they generally just did want the best for us. And I can remember going into the office, the youth team office, after I'd been released, and I shook their hand and I just said thank you, because I realised. And there was actually a time at Grimsby when it was decisions for the second year pro. So it would have been to get offered my third year.
Right.
Probably 6 months, I knew that I wasn't going to get offered. Off the back of this head injury, I didn't think the club appreciated how I went about it. So I went into the office one day and I was like, I don't appreciate that you lot are telling me that I need to look elsewhere and retire. And I just went for a crazy period. I want playing. I wanted to play for the first team, and I want getting opportunities. And I had such a frustration.
Yeah.
I just took it out on everyone that was there in sight. And I had sessions where I'd go flying through people.
Right.
And I think the club were just so frustrated because they couldn't see that I was seeing it from their point of view. And I didn't understand it at the time. I just thought everyone at the club was against me. And it just turned into anger. I got to a point in my second year where I was just so angry all the time, and it definitely pulled me back. And in that second year, I was out doing extras all the time. So I was like, I'll do anything I can to get in this first team. And I can remember knocking on the manager's door in that time saying, what have I got to do to be in this first team? And I'll go and do it. And, he's sort of like, be patient, keep doing what you're doing, and you'll get that chance. And, it never really came. And then...
That's annoying, that.
Yeah.
That response is annoying for me personally.
Yeah.
So to be patient, it's going to come. Come on.
Yeah, it just never really came. Yeah. And it did sort of trickle out in my second year at Grimsby. And I can remember walking into the office at the stadium, and, so only 3 lads got offered pros out of our group of probably 8 or 9.
That had all had 2 years?
Yeah.
Right.
One lad got released after his first year pro. Me and the other lad, Evan, got offered our second year pros. And then I got released after my second year. And I think Evan had signed an additional contract, which took him a further 2 years within that year. I think he was playing at the time. So they extended his contract early. And that's when I got released. And I can remember going into the office. I knew what was coming. And he told me that they wasn't going to extend my contract. And I can remember I was sat like this in a chair. And I just put my head down and I sort of smiled to myself. And the manager said, we don't normally get that response. You look relieved. And I can remember saying to him, yeah, I am. I just think I'm ready for a fresh start. And he agreed with me. And when he was explaining it to me, he just said, we think you'll go and have a career, but it's not going to be here. And, I appreciated him being honest with me. I wouldn't have wanted to stay there and just... I always struggled with not playing. I just wanted to play.
It's every footballer, isn't it? Yeah.
And when he said it, I was relieved. And I'd already packed all my stuff going there. I knew I wasn't going to get my third year. And we actually had a really good conversation, me and the manager, Paul Hurst. And now I appreciate what he did for me as well. So I'd say he was another person that helped me through. And I left the stadium. I went and thanked all the youth team managers and all the staff that helped me through my time there. And I went back to my host family. So I was living with a lady. It was just us. And I went back there and I said bye to her, and I went home. And I can remember driving home. I was so relieved, and I was actually a bit happy.
Yeah.
Which is weird, really, because
For what you've been through, though, Jaz, I mean, come on, it was a rough ride there. I don't think there was much understanding. It didn't seem like they held a space for you to feel supported. And
maybe not. And I honestly, now I sit here, I don't blame anyone.
No, it's...
I think the time at Grimsby was so big for me, just in life in general. in what I learned. Like, if it had all been great for me at Grimsby, I worry like how I'd deal with stuff now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad I went through. Like, I know it's a bit of a cliche when footballers say about injuries and stuff, but I'm glad I went through the injuries, and I'm glad I went through to Matlock and I didn't play, because it learnt me at such a young age, at 17, 18, to deal with, not getting what you want. And I definitely feel it's very similar in my life now, in business, and the training that I do now. Things just don't go how you want, and it's people that can find a way through that go and succeed.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's finding a way, finding your path. So obviously, I mean, Grimsby was a massive learning experience for you. Obviously, you're very grateful for that opportunity, like you've mentioned a lot in that.
For sure.
So what happened after Grimsby then?
After Grimsby, I went into there's a few clubs which obviously wanted to sign me with me being released, and I'd obviously got my name out sort of in the non-league game, playing so many. I think I played 150, 200 games by the end of my Grimsby contract in non-league, which was quite rare.
That is good.
At 18, I think I'd had 50 odd games at step 3, and then probably well over 100 at step 4. I had a few clubs that came in. I eventually went into Alpherton first, and then when I went into Alpherton, I had an agent at the time when I was at Grimsby, and he took me up to Salford, and I went up to Salford, and I went on trial there, which was a bit of a weird time for me. I went up, I stayed in the host family again, and I trained there for a week, which then got extended to another week, and we played some pre-season fixtures with them. I honestly thought I was going to get offered the contract there. A lot of the lads which were signed also thought that. So I was the only trialist at the time. And the lads were shocked when I didn't get offered, and I was a little bit as well. And they just turned around to me and said that I wasn't the profile which they were looking for, which again is fair, and it happens. So I went back to Alpherton and I signed with them. And Alpherton just never really worked out for me. I found that, the manager there was very set on the players that he had. He'd had the base of the team for 4 or 5 years.
Oh, really?
And it was a very experienced team. There wasn't many young lads in there. But he was so keen for me to go and sign. I just thought, National League North, I'll go and play. And I thought I played really well in pre-season. Like, we played Notts County, Chesterfield. We played some good teams, and, I thought I held my own. And I actually got told that I was going to go play the first game of the season, and I didn't.
Right.
And I can remember just being filled with that anger again. So, I went into Alpherton, and I thought that I performed in pre-season well enough to play. And I didn't. And I can remember just from that moment there, I just knew I wasn't going to stay. And I probably did leave there a bit too soon. I probably should have gave it a bit longer. I did give it a few games, and obviously as a centre-half, you're not very likely to come on unless there's an injury. And I was just sick of sitting there on the bench, and I was training well, and I thought I should have been playing. And Baseford came in at the time. We were step 3, so it was the league below, but it was a league that I played in. And I went straight in and I played. Manager said I'd come in and I'd play. And I went into Baseford, and I was playing. I was playing well, but I just felt like I'd moved on too quick. And I literally went from leaving Alpherton on the Tuesday to playing on the Saturday. And I played there, and it was the first time I played out of position. I played left back quite a lot at that Baseford team. I think they'd had an injury, and then I played centre half some games, but. Baseford came and went pretty quick. I think it was about 4 or 5 months. The manager got sacked, and I only really went to play for the manager. And I didn't want to stay there when another manager came in. And I can remember I was in contact still with the Grimsby Borough manager, and I told him I wasn't really enjoying it there. Just, it didn't really ever click. I didn't have like a massive relationship with the lads there. I found it was a bit of a weird changing room, a bit cliquey, like very like groupy. It wasn't really like a big group. There was sort of like individual groups of lads that stuck together. So I went back to Grimsby Borough, and that's where I finished the season. And that was when I finally then went on to Stocksbridge. And again, Stocksbridge and Ian Richardson there at the time was probably the time where I enjoyed my football the most. It was the time where I enjoyed playing the most. I was playing my best football, and at this time, this was when the business was live, and I was doing it every week, and I really struggled to be able to run the business and be at that step 3 level, travelling all over the country, really. Like Newcastle on a Tuesday night. I then couldn't train Tuesdays. I couldn't coach on Tuesdays because I was training. I couldn't coach on a Thursday because I was training, and then Saturday weekend was wrote off. Saturday you're travelling all day, you play, and then Sunday I wasn't going to coach. I was just knackered, and it's that recovery for the next week. And I gave it 6 or 7 months, and honestly, like I've come on social media and I've said that how much I enjoyed my time at Stocksbridge, and I did. And I had the thought of leaving football, but when it's something that it's all you've ever known, it's definitely easier said than done. And I can remember I took myself to Manchester one weekend, and I said that I'm going to go to Manchester, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to train, and I'm just going to really think about what I'm going to do, because it's a massive decision. And I can remember on the Sunday I rang the manager and I just said, look, I don't want to think about it anymore. I just want to tell you I'm going to finish playing. Something's just not there for me. I've lost a love for it. Obviously, I explained the business. He knew about it already, but it was at a stage where it was growing and growing, and I just couldn't be away from the business as much as I was if I wanted it to grow like I wanted it to grow. And he completely understood. He was really, really good in understanding, what I was saying and what I wanted to go and do. And I said to him, look, like, I'll play as long as you need to, because I understand it's not ideal me leaving halfway through the season. At the time, the other centre-half had broke his wrist, so there was no cover. And I said, like, look, I will stay as long as you need to, but I just want you to know when I can, I want to come away from it. And he just said, look, I'll let you know, but for me, you should be fine to finish it there. And I completely understand, and I've got the utmost respect for him, because he was so helpful when I was at the club, and he was so understanding of when I left the club. And I still speak to a lot of the lads from Stocksbridge now and meet up with them still. And that was when I officially stopped playing football and, went all in on the business. And, a lot of people will know that I signed up for an Ironman not long after that, and that's what I'm training for at the minute, which is in October. I've done a lot of things since then, which I'd never done before. So I've done distance runs, high rocks. Obviously, swimming was very new to me. Road cycling was very new to me. And, running was new to me in a way as well, because it's very different to football.
Oh, yeah.
But I've enjoyed so much just learning the new sport. And what I like about triathlon is that, it is 3 sports. And a lot of people, I found that there's 1 or 2 that they don't like, but then they're really good at another.
Yeah.
Whereas I generally love all 3. I found it swimming at first. It's not very good, but I've learned to get better. And
would you have lessons? Did you swimming lessons or anything like that?
So
one of the coaches, one
of the parents who bring their kids to me invited me down, and they had a look at me. They have an open water swimming there, and then a class coach, and she sort of gave me some tips, which was really helpful of her. And apart from that, I've had nothing. I train with my friend James, who signed up at the same time, and I just do a lot of learning. Obviously spend a lot of time in the water, and I just think that's probably helped me the most, just doing time in the water, learning what I need to get better at. Like, all my training is built by me. I don't have a coach. I don't do anything like that. I've always liked to learn what I'm doing. So I went and did a massage course whilst so it was after I left Grimsby. I went and did a massage course, just as probably a little bit of a backup. So I didn't know what to do. And I was always very friendly with the S&C coaches, because I found it so interesting about like how the body works, and that the little percentages on how to be better. So now I do all my plans myself, and this time I don't see myself getting a coach either, unless I get to a point where I feel like I need to get to that next level.
Yeah, I think it's good that, I mean, obviously it's very, very honest there, and obviously but the thing for you though, you've been coached predominantly all your career, right? You know, you've had multiple coaches, backroom staff. You've had that feeling, so you know what it's like to have a coach in your corner. Probably this now is a nice bit of freedom for you.
It is, yeah.
Relaxing, you know, to feel like, oh, this is a fresh start, like what you were looking for, and you're not having to just to sort of checking what you said about, you know, you just want to play, right?
Yeah.
This is your play.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think another reason why I coach myself is I just seem to love the idea of it all being on me.
Yeah.
Like that pressure. I like that pressure, and
you're accountable to yourself.
I think about like my career and that, I do think I'm better suited to a single sport. I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I like it all being on me.
Right.
And I think that's why I've took to it so well. I've got that feeling now like I once had as a kid playing football. I just love doing it because I like doing it. And that's why I do it so often. Like I train 20 hours a week.
Mad.
Which is crazy.
It's like a part-time job, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Alongside your business.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get on to like how I manage the both, and it's probably like the most asked question I get from friends and people that I speak to, like, how do you manage the workload? I think if you generally love something, you find a way to do it. And it comes with its negatives, like you do lose things along the way of being so set on a sport or a job or any profession really. And I know it's probably not the most sociable thing to do, sitting on a bike for 6 hours. You don't have that much time in the day anyway. So, if you want in spare time, triathlon, definitely not the sport for that. But, it's what I want to do. So, yeah, it's what I'll keep doing.
Yeah, but you're doing something you enjoy, right? Obviously, I think it's very clear to hear from this episode and also your story of football, how that turned out, that now you've got your thing that you want to do and you really, really enjoy, and it's all on you. And I think you're doing, like, so when you talked earlier about what you want people to get from this episode, this is now your dream. It's just the next dream. It just weren't right. It weren't sitting right. That football dream once was. You give it time. You tried.
Yeah.
You've definitely had experiences at different levels and football clubs, and you've met some great people along the way. But you've found that actually this is now working for me, and I'm going to stick at this. And you're finding what you're great at, and I think that's actually quite admirable as well. And I think something that I would love the guys to take away, that, like you say, just because something hasn't worked out doesn't mean you can't go and create something else. And also you had to make a tough decision to sort of close the door on football when you got told at Grimsby you could have had a fantastic career out of it, which probably you could have made good money. But again, you chose the Ironman path and you chose to build your business. What made you choose Ironman specifically out of everything?
I can remember, so I was always interested in more endurance, not necessarily Ironman. I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about it before. I know it's probably got a lot more popular over the last couple of years. I can remember when I was in Manchester and I was having to think about what I wanted to go and do, because obviously stopping playing football was going to give me a lot of spare time. So I wanted to sort of transition straight into whatever I was going to go and do. I just wanted to do something which I knew was going to take a lot of time and a lot of years to learn. And I actually searched up what are the hardest things you can do, and Ironman came up as one of them. So I just said that's going to be the next goal.
Yeah.
I know it's going to give me. It was a year at the time. It was October. I stopped playing. It's going to give me a year where I can just focus on one thing, and I might do it, and it might just be a one and out thing. I don't think it will be. I generally think I can get to a good level in the sport, and I want to go and do that. I've got my eye on a few things next year, which are all triathlon related. I want to go in. I want to be at the World Champs. I'm not shy to put it out there.
Wow.
In the next couple of years, I want to go and, I want to go and be at the World Champs. That's the goal. That's what I want to go and do. And I honestly think I will go and do it, because, everything that I've done in my life, if I want to go and do it, I'll find a way. And again, now I'm not the most talented swimmer, biker or runner, but, I'll find a way to keep chipping that time down. and eventually, hopefully, it'll lead on to that.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, mate. I think just obviously you've got that hard work ethic, like you said, being around your dad and what he's built and being a role model. Obviously, it's clear to see you don't give up because, you've had that football, there's the setbacks, but there's been those comebacks, you've transitioned, and I think it's really nice to hear as well, just after being a pro footballer and then now going into a different sport and being able to confidently say, I'm going to go world champs. I'm going to do this. I know I will. I think is fantastic. And just because we're getting towards the end of this episode now, because obviously you work with a lot of talented players, right? Footballers that come from all different backgrounds. Obviously, you said earlier about people seem to lose themselves at 16 or quit and they're really talented. What would you say you're sat here now, like, say I'm coming to you and you're my role model. I'm like, it doesn't matter what age, I want to become a professional footballer. That's my dream. What would you sort of say? There's 3 things or 2 or 1 thing that they would need to know if they've got any chance of making it.
I mean, I have a lot of conversations with players. I deal with kids from 5 to 18 plus. I still coach a lot of full-time players, semi-pro lads. If I was to say anything to anybody that wanted to go and have a career in football, if I was to say one thing, I'd say hard work.
Yeah.
Like, being in the job that I'm in, I see so many technically good players who are amazing, better than I was when I was a kid, better than my generation. The level of player nowadays is quite unbelievable to see. They've got so much available to them. So I think being a good footballer, I'm not going to say easy, but it's a lot easier to come by nowadays. You see it a lot more often. Back when I played, it was quite rare to see someone that was really technical. But with everyone having it, or a lot more people than when I was a kid having it, it doesn't stand out. So I would say that hard work definitely goes a long way. I'd honestly say further than anything, in my experience, because hard work can mean you're getting better technically if you want to go out and take yourself down to a field and work on it. If you're not hard working, then you won't do that. So I think if I was to say one thing, hard work, because I think it trickles down into all the different things that you need to be a footballer. I think a big thing of football is opportunity, but you've got to put yourself in that opportunity. So that might be going to sign for a team which you might not be quite at the level of the better players. You're not shying away and wanting to be the star all the time. I find, you'll learn a lot more from being in that middle pack than being one of the star players all the time. If you can get a mix of it, great. If you can be a really good team where, you're winning things and, you might not necessarily be the best player, but it's a really good team to work around, and great. Obviously, you also want to get on the ball, and that's how you get better as a footballer. By getting on the ball. So if you can get a mix, great. But yeah, for me, hard works is the biggest thing, and it's the biggest thing I see that people lack nowadays as well. That's another reason why I would say it.
Right.
I definitely feel like in today's day and age, things have changed. Mindsets have changed. People's perspectives on how players should be has changed. Parents' opinions on what players need. I find so much changed in, it wasn't that long when I was that age, and so much has changed. So I feel like I keep saying changed, but it has.
It's moving quick though.
It's moving quick.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably another important thing, being able to adapt to different situations, because there's so many different situations from when you're 10 to 16 that you're going to go through. Like, you'll play up year, you'll play academies, you'll play, teams abroad if you're going to tournaments. I think players that can adapt a lot of the time stand out a lot more. But it's such an hard sport, and I think only people that have played it, and have played at a good level can understand how hard it actually is. If I was to say anything to anybody, work on your mindset, because you can be the best player in the world. If you've got a weak mindset, then you're not going to get very far. And by mindset, I mean, how do you deal with setbacks? if you're not in the team, are you going to throw a tantrum, or are you going to go, okay, then right, I'm going to show you?
You're going to go and smash someone's ankle to pieces.
Yeah.
Just
on the other end of that.
Yeah.
But like, even these things, like, they are such like negative things, but I'm so glad that I went through them, and it has taught me so much.
Yeah. You shared some good things. I mean, obviously for me, I think just to sort of like capture those pieces you said there, it's something that's the same business, right? Where if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So it's similar in football, isn't it? If you're the best player in the dressing room, you're in the wrong dressing room, right? You need a change. You need to start putting yourself, like you said, even if you're the middle pack, bottom, you sort of wanting that hunger to play for that team, get that shirt on, right? It's the same thing with the hard work beats talent every day. I believe that. I think obviously you can be the most talented player but if you've not got hard work, but hard work comes from what's up here. So I think just where you said about working on the mindset, I think is key, because obviously we live in a very, like you said, we're accessible to most things. We get everything given, so that adaptability becomes harder because we just get everything given to us. We're not thrown into that sort of deep end very often.
No. And nor do you see kids going out themselves in training, like
doing the extras.
Used to see back in the day.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I totally see that.
Like, I think that was where I probably learnt the most, by just spending hours on a pitch every week.
Yeah,
just doing drills. I think it's great. Like, obviously, I run a business which people bring the kids to, and I believe in what we're doing, what we're offering to the kids. I think they'll get a lot from it, but you don't see kids that want to go out, nor do they want to do it. They want to sit on Xbox and, go out with their mates, which is important.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's another side to it, and there's that grit and just doing it when nobody else really wants to do it. That's the stuff that's going to take you and give you a career.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's good. I think it's doing the things that people don't want to do. Yeah. That's that discipline aspect coming in as well. Well, look, there's two questions I want to ask you, Jaz. First one being, it's one I ask every guest. From your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Good question.
On the spot.
I didn't know it was coming. Mastering your life, understanding what you want out of life, making a plan to go and do it, and doing it.
Good.
I think I'll keep it nice and simple.
Short and sweet. I love it.
I think people sit on ideas too much. I think if you've got something and you want to go and do it, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand financials and stuff nowadays.
Sure.
So, going to make a business might not be like the best idea. It costs money to do.
Of course.
But everybody in a job can side hustle, and you can slowly build it up. And, if you generally put the work in, there'll be a time where they cross over and you can just start to drop hours, and then you can dive in. But yeah, have an idea and go and do it. And, don't let anyone tell you that anything otherwise, because, anything is possible. You see it so much nowadays. You can see it all on social media. People that have nothing can go and win the Olympics. People who are poor can go and build multi-million-pound businesses. It's not unicorn stuff nowadays. So it is possible. So, yeah, if I was to say anything to anyone that is listening, I'd say definitely that.
Yeah, I love that, mate. I think it's good, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I think we can overcomplicate things. We can make things sound a bit more intense than it needs to be. It's like bam, bam, like you say, literally do what you want, go and do it, and find out for yourself what comes off the back of it, because you're going to learn something, aren't you?
What's the worst that can happen?
I know. So final thing, mate, where can people connect with you, find out more about your business, or just generally, even if they want to reach out to you and just say a few words, where's the best place?
So I probably post most regularly on Instagram.
Yeah.
Handles Jaz Goundry on Instagram. I do a little bit on TikTok as well. The business is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We've got a website, Player Performance. The business, we're in Sutton. We've got an indoor 3G facility.
Yeah.
We take kids from 5 years old to 16 plus. A lot of the training that we do is very technical, and I'd say anyone that's wanting to build their child's technical ability and wanting to push, it doesn't even have to be academy football. I'd say it's a great place to come. We've built from 0 kids to nearly 300 kids that come weekly now. So you know, what we're doing, it's great to see that it's making a good impression on kids, and, you know, seeing kids go to sign for academies is great, and it's why you do what you do. But ultimately, you know, teaching them to be good people and take, you know, some of the life lessons which I've personally learnt from football into their life. If it's in football, great. If it's not, and if they take it into any work life, then, you know, it's also going to be beneficial. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Brilliant. You're giving back, mate. Well, listen, thank you for joining us in the studio today. Did you enjoy your first podcast experience?
I enjoyed it. It flew by.
I know, it's been class, mate. It's been class.
It's good to share my story, and I think, you know, a lot of people don't really see that side of me. I don't put it out there much.
Well, you've definitely got a lot to share, man.
Yeah, I think it's important that people do know it's just not a always success, and, you know, you are what negatives come from your life, and if you can use them as a positive, then great. So no, I've enjoyed it.
Good, man. It was class, really good. Flew by, definitely.
Thank you for having me.
No, solid, mate, solid. It's been great.